What's up, kids? Today we're going to do some foreign language stuff. It's not going to be Russian. It's not going to be no bogus French. Today we're going to do Dutch. And we're going to go on a little journey here. And I'm going to take you down the little Dutch road. And you're going to learn how to... You're going to learn how to cough up hairballs today, okay? Because we're speaking Dutch. Okay, so how did I get my start in Dutch? Why did I start learning Dutch? Actually, this goes back a long way. Okay, I lived in Germany when I was a kid, and my dad would take us on these vacations, and we went to Holland a couple times when I was real little. And then in 1999, I went for the first time with my brother. We took a trip, and we went to Amsterdam, and it was a lot of fun. You know, we went to raves, we went all over town, went to coffee shops, and had ourselves a good old time. Then I went a couple years later with my, and we had ourselves a good old time. And what can I say? So from the moment I went to Holland for the first time and saw the Dutch language written on billboards and on buildings, I thought it was really strange looking because of all the double vowels and everything. And I just thought, wow, what a strange looking language. And then I heard it. And I was in Amsterdam. And I was on the tram. And I heard these girls, these college age girls, really cute girls. And I was, maybe 23, 22, 23. And I heard these girls speaking Dutch to each other. They're, young girls, and they're just kind of jiving with each other in Dutch. I just remember thinking that blew me away. I want to talk to those girls. And so I just decided I want to learn this freaking language, man. It's just something else. And I was just like, man, I want to be able to do that. And so I started right away. I went and bought a Dutch dictionary. I was like right there in Amsterdam, and I was going back to my hotel room just poring over this dictionary, writing words out. And I bought a book, and I'll go through some of it today. Stephen King's book, The Gunslinger. I bought a Dutch translation of it at like the train station or something, or maybe a bookstore. And I just remember I couldn't even say the name of the book. Like, I would practice it, and I still can't say it. It's pretty fucking hard to say. The Dutch version of The Gunslinger is called the Scherpschutter. Okay, and most Americans can't make those sounds. Most Americans can't make the sounds of Dutch. But I'm going to try and do it today because it's been years since I started teaching myself how to speak Dutch. And that's pretty much what I did. I taught myself. During the short time I actually lived up in Portland, I hired a Dutch tutor. There actually was a Dutch tutor who came to my house, and he was a little teeny weeny weensy little old man who was like 100 years old, and he had grown up in Suriname. His father was a customs officer and would take him on the boats when he was a kid. Like, they would board a ship and he'd take his son with him. And so this guy, Frank was his name. Frank. And Frank actually worked, he was a translator for the UN at one time. And so I didn't even know this place existed, this Suriname. I thought people only spoke Dutch in the Netherlands. Turns out, that in South Africa they speak a variation on Dutch, which has become its own mother tongue called Afrikaans. And Afrikaans is the language of the Dutch colonists from like 300 years ago who settled in South Africa. And so you'll find spelling variations. It's very similar, and I think that a lot of Dutch people can speak Afrikaans, but it's not exactly one for one because it's 300 years separated. And so I did take that tutoring from Frank, a South American Dutchman. So yeah, that's the thing. So they also speak it in parts of Indonesia. So there's Indonesian Dutch, and then there's Guyana in South America, where I think they speak it there, and Aruba. So he was telling me that those were the Dutch colonies in South America. So, but he was from Suriname. And so he was an interesting guy. He was really hard to understand, even for a Dutchman. I couldn't understand him because he was a little tiny man with a little tiny voice. And he couldn't even do the guttural G's because he didn't have any vocal cords. And so he was really hard to learn from because even when he spoke English, I couldn't understand him. And so when he spoke Dutch, his Dutch even seemed like it was different. Like it wasn't like the same Dutch you hear, with normal Dutch adults. So anyway, I'm going to get to this because I got a lot to go over. And I'm going to break this down into sections. And I'll probably edit some of them around later because I don't know if I'm starting in the right spot. One of the things I can say about trying to learn a foreign language, and I've studied several, is that you can start anywhere. It's like an onion. You just take a little sliver of that onion and you just start peeling it, and it's like it's like this blanket here. You just peel on a thread, you pull on a thread and just let it unravel. And to me, that's what language is all about. Like, if you're going to learn a language, you want to learn everything you can about the language. Now, there are strategies. You don't want to try to eat the elephant all in one bite, but eventually you have to get to every corner. Eventually you do have to eat the entire elephant. So my recommendation is, in order to encourage yourself in the early days of studying a language, the best thing that you can do is treat yourself like a child and learn only what a child would know. Put yourself into the mind of a child, but don't take that philosophy too seriously because you're going to stumble into some other areas and you need to explore those areas too. So start off with the idea that I'm just going to learn what a child knows, because you see Dutch children speaking to their parents and they're only 3 years old or whatever, but they can hold a conversation with mom and dad. So it's possible. And so you try to just learn those things that a child would say. And so I don't want to, just translate that sentence, and then you're off to a good start. But the language is, I wouldn't say it's as big as English. English has got to be one of the biggest languages. There's more words in English than probably any other language. But I imagine Chinese is very difficult because you've got more characters. But English is probably the most comprehensive language you can learn. And it's also the most eclectic. And so you've got a lot of different rules that come from Greek and Latin and German and other languages as well. I would say that as far as Dutch goes, Dutch is sort of, if you have like a Venn diagram of say German, English, and French, Dutch would be in the middle. It probably more German and English than anything else. It's probably the closest language to English that there actually is, but don't let it fool you. It's very difficult. Dutch is a difficult language to learn. Nederlands is een erg moeilijk taal om te leren. It's a difficult language to learn. And so don't be shocked when you see words that look like they're English, but they're virtually unpronounceable for somebody who only speaks English. And with Dutch, you have to make a whole host of new sounds. You have to learn how to gargle words in the back of your throat. You gargle your R's. Your G's are just straight up coughing up hairballs. And the hardest sound to make in Dutch is the SCH sound, which in German just is sh, like Schule. But in Dutch, it's sk. So that's a hard sound to make. It's hard to say that one in flow. It's hard to make the so you just have to treat it like an SH, but it's a little harder than an H. It's a hard H. And so that, like the Scottish loch, okay? So that, it's just something we're not used to doing. And so you have to get used to it. So I'm just going to jump in now. I'll put my boomer glasses on. I gotta clean my glasses. I'm not going to be able to see what I'm doing. I gotta clean these glasses. Okay, so I've got several notebooks here, and I've got a couple of textbooks. And I'm just going to go through some of my notebooks. And this first one is from this little miniature Berlitz Dutch. So these are some basic Dutch phrases here. So how do you say thank you in Dutch? Well, there's a couple of different ways. You've got a formal and an informal. English is one of the few languages that don't really stress a difference between formal and informal. I think we probably do have it in some areas. Grammatically, it's more pronounced in European languages. And so the formal form of thank you is dank u. Dank u. Now, if you want to say it informal, you say dank je. Dank je. So it sounds like donkey, I know. So it's either dank u or dank je. And so that's the difference between the formal and the informal. And you can also say dank u wel. Dank u wel. And wel is like it's an intensifier. Wel, as you can guess, kind of means like well. It's W-E-L. And then you can say dank je wel for the informal. And then you can say niets te danken, which means like, don't thank me. Niets te danken. It's nothing. Okay, so, or you could say geen dank, which means don't thank. Don't mention it. Geen dank. Okay, and then you can say graag gedaan, which means gladly done. Like, I did it with pleasure. Or you could say met plezier. It's the same thing. So, graag gedaan or met plezier. You can also say geef niet, which means never mind. Geef niet also means it doesn't matter. So these are just formalities. And whenever you learn a new language, you're going to learn like salutations and polite sayings. Because, sometimes when you're just being introduced, you might not even get a chance to speak to people, but you want to be able to nod your head and say thank you. And so that's why that's the first thing you learn in a foreign language. If you want to say, do you speak English? So like you might be lost and you might need to talk to somebody. And in the Netherlands, you'll find that most people speak English. So what you could say, well, you could probably just say, do you speak English? And they would probably go, yeah, and they speak it better than you. Okay, but, or you can say, spreekt u Engels? Spreekt u Engels? Means, do you speak English? Spreekt u Engels? Does anyone here speak English? Yes, you speak some English. Son of beach, shit. Remember that from Stripes? The guy teaching the ESL class. How would you say that? Does anyone here speak English? You say, is er hier iemand die Engels spreekt? And that means, is there here someone who English speaks? Okay, so you kind of get used to the idea that your syntax is going to change. You're going to change the word order, because even though Dutch is similar to English, it contains the syntax rules of German, roughly. And so it's very much like German in its word order. Is er hier iemand die Engels spreekt? Is er hier iemand die Engels spreekt? Is er hier iemand die Engels spreekt? And then you can ask, could you speak more slowly? Because if someone's just going off, they just, like, maybe you said a phrase like really well, and that's something that I find when I'm speaking a foreign language to a native speaker. I'm pretty good at faking it sometimes, like, and I'm a pretty good mimic, so I can do accents fairly well. And so sometimes I'll slip and say something perfect, and they just like, oh, game on, and they start going off, and you're like, I don't understand a fucking word this person's saying. Okay, so you might need to say, could you speak more slowly? And so you say, kunt u iets langzamer spreken? Or you can say it like, kunt u wat langzamer spreken? So the difference between iets and wat. Okay, so iets, it really means something. The other variation, kunt u wat langzamer spreken, means like, can you speak a bit slower? Instead of somewhat slower, which is, I guess, what iets would mean. Or you could just say like, kunt u dat langzamer zeggen? Could you say that slower? Kunt u dat langzamer zeggen? Personally, I would say, kunt u wat langzamer spreken? Alsjeblieft. Alsjeblieft means please. Kunt u wat langzamer spreken, alsjeblieft? That's how I would say it. Can you write it down? You might need to say that, like, if you're really not understanding what someone's saying and they keep saying it and you're kind of in that awkward position that no matter how many times they say it, it's going to go over your head, and you just maybe want them to write it down so you can see it, and maybe you read Dutch better than you understand it. Okay, so you could say, kunt u het opschrijven? Like, could you write it down? Kunt u het opschrijven? Could you write it down? Or you could say, please, kunt u het opschrijven, alstublieft? You might ask, just like, for them to say it again. Could you repeat that? And you'd say, kunt u dat herhalen? Kunt u dat herhalen? Means, can you repeat that? Kunt u dat herhalen? How would you say, excuse me? You say, pardon? It's like French. They borrow that from the French. Pardon? It means, excuse me. You can say, pardon, meneer. Pardon, meneer. Excuse me, sir. Meneer. Pardon, meneer. Or to a woman, I think that the R on mevrouw should be guttural, a throaty R. Pardon, mevrouw. Okay, so people in Amsterdam tend to do their R more like an American R and more which is really strange because you don't hear that much from Europeans. Usually Europeans tend to roll their R's. And in Dutch, sometimes they roll their R's. And sometimes they roll it in the back of the throat. And we call that a throaty R. But sometimes they go like, It's like more exaggerated than the American R. So, you might say, pardon, mevrouw. But I would say it more throaty. I'd say like, pardon, mevrouw. That's how I would say it. If you want to ask, what did you say? You might say, wat zegt u? Wat zegt u? Like, what are you saying? Wat zegt u? What do you say? What are you saying? Okay, and you might ask, could you please spell it? Okay, so like, maybe someone's telling you their name. If you're saying like, wat is uw naam? Or you could say like, hoe weet je? Or hoe weet u? Because you don't know them yet. Hoe weet u? You're using the formal. And they might say, mijn naam is Gerrit. And you're like, what? Ik heet Gerrit. And you're like, it's like Gerard. That's how they say Gerard. It's like Gerrit. It's hard for me to say. Ik heet Gerrit. I'm glad that's not my fucking name. And so you might ask them to spell it because all you heard was him coughing up a hairball and you don't know what to call him. And so you're like, could you spell it? How would you ask, can you spell it? You'd say, kunt u dat spellen alstublieft? Kunt u dat spellen alstublieft? Means, could you spell it, please? Kunt u dat spellen alstublieft? So, could you please spell it for me? Okay, now how would you ask, could you translate this for me? Like you got it, like maybe you got a newspaper and there's like a sentence you can't decode, and so maybe you made a Dutch friend at the coffee shop and you're like, could you please like translate this for me? How would you say it? You could say, kunt u dit voor me vertalen? Kunt u dit voor me vertalen? Kunt u dit voor me vertalen? It means, could you please translate this for me? Kunt u dit voor me vertalen? Kunt u dit voor me vertalen, alstublieft? Pardon, meneer. Kunt u dit voor me vertalen, alstublieft? So that means, excuse me, sir, could you please translate this for me? How would you say, what does this mean? What does this mean? Wat betekent dit? Wat betekent dit? Means, what does this mean? Wat betekent dit? Or you can say, wat betekent dat? Like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Wat betekent dat? Wat betekent dit? Wat betekent dat? Okay, dit, dat, this, that. Can you point to the phrase in the book? So, like, maybe you've got a book and they're saying it's there on that page and you don't see it, and you're like, could can you point to that phrase in the book? You say, kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? Kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? Kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? Aanwijzen. Kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? What you've got here is some neuter nouns as opposed to common nouns. So you've got, your nouns are going to fall into two categories. So in some languages you've got feminine and masculine. Well, in Dutch, the feminine and masculine nouns are combined into what's called common gender. And then the neuter is neuter gender. So there are times when you will differentiate between feminine and masculine, but only when you're using the pronoun for it. So, like, sometimes you'll say him for it, and sometimes you'll say her for it. And so, depending on whether it's a feminine or masculine noun, but both of them get caught up in the common gender category where de is used as the definite article as opposed to het, which het is reserved for the neuter nouns. And sometimes het is swallowed and it just sounds like it. Sometimes it can kind of go over your head a little bit. Kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? Kunt u het zinnetje in het boek aanwijzen? So, could you point to the sentence in the book? So I guarantee you'll never say this sentence traveling in Holland. But hey, it's a good exercise. So they'll lose patience with you by then for sure. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So sometimes you might say, I understand. Like, they might think that you're not understanding. Maybe you're just kind of standing there with your mouth open and they're like, they keep repeating it, and all you say is, ik begrijp het. Ik begrijp het. It means I understand it. Ik begrijp het. Ik begrijp het. I understand. I get it. Ik begrijp het. I get it. I understand it. And then sometimes you could say, do you understand? You could say, begrijpt u? Begrijpt u? Do you understand? Or you could say, snapt u het? Snapt is more like, it's like, hey, snapperhead. No, it's not really. It sounds like it. Snapt u het means like, you get it? You get it? Like you grok that? Like in Stranger in a Strange Land. Okay, so, but I understand. Ik begrijp het. Okay, and you might say, I don't understand. You say, ik begrijp het niet. Ik begrijp het niet. Ik begrijp het niet. Ik begrijp het niet. I don't understand. Ik begrijp het niet. You can say, okay, and I already went through this one. Begrijpt u het? Do you understand? Do you understand? Begrijpt u het? Begrijpt u het? But it kind of rolls off a little easier. You say, begrijpt u het? Okay, so that suffices. Okay, that is 9 guilders 95 cents, which you're not going to use because they don't even use guilders anymore. This book was written back when they used guilders, before the euro. Dat is 9 gulden 95. I know that's a mouthful. Dat is 9 gulden 95. I know, for an American, I have a really hard time saying it too. You say, dat is 9 gulden 95. That's 9 guilders, 95 cents. Dat is 9 gulden 95. Okay. It sounds like a bunch of horseradish, but it works, believe me. Okay, so euros would be dat is 9,95 euro. Okay, dat is 9,95 euro. Dat is 9,95 euro. I know it sounds fucked up. It is. That's why I wanted to learn Dutch, because I heard those girls on the tram and they're like, dat is 9,95 euro. And I was just like, wow, man, I want to be able to say that shit. Okay, so we're moving on to a different book. We're no longer in the Berlich mini book. Now we are in the Language 30 series. The Language 30 series. Okay, and this was the first introduction I ever had to spoken Dutch, because I bought my copy of the Scherpschutter. It's hard to blend English and Dutch together. Like, you're saying English and then you're speaking English and then like you fall into Dutch for like the Scherpschutter. It's a hard one to say for Americans. When I was in Holland, I bought my little Dutch dictionary, my little mini pocket dictionary, and I wrote out words that I thought were common, and then I bought the copy of Scherpschutter, and I started looking up words that were in the book. Because when you look at a book, you start to see which words are more common, which pop up more often than others. Okay, so the Dutch 30 series. This was the first exposure I had to audio, an audio course, like a cassette course. So we'll go through a few more basic phrases. Then I'll make this quick, and then we'll move on. So, if you want to say I don't know in Dutch, you say dat weet ik niet. Dat weet ik niet. I don't know. Or you can say ik weet het niet. Dat weet ik niet, or ik weet dat niet, or ik weet het niet. You can say any of those three will work. Dat weet ik niet. Ik weet het niet. Okay, I think so. How do you say I think so? You say ik denk van wel. Ik denk van wel. Ik denk van wel. Ik denk van wel. Means I think so. How do you say I don't think so? You say ik denk van niet. Ik denk van niet. Means I don't think so. What about what do you think? How would you say that in Dutch? What do you think? You say, wat vindt u? Wat vindt u? Okay? And that's the formal. If you're speaking to your friend, you say, wat vindt je? Wat vindt je? Okay? So, and literally, it's like, what find you? Wat vindt u? What find you? How do you... It's like saying, like, how do you find... Like, I find that very interesting. We say that in English. I find that very offensive. You know, ik vind dat gek. I think that's crazy. Ben je gek geworden? Means like, have you gone crazy? Ben je gek geworden? Have you gone crazy? Ben je gek geworden? Okay, so, wat vindt u means, like, how do you like it? You know, what do you think? Why not? Is waarom niet? Waarom niet? Or you can say waarom niet. If you want to roll your R, you can. Because like as a beginner, you might just say waarom niet. That works. That works for any Dutch person. I think that waarom niet is a little bit more advanced. But I think you might just say waarom niet. Waarom niet? Why not? Waarom niet? Waarom means why. Waarom. In any language, you need to learn the question words very early. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay, you need to learn those early on. How do you say who in Dutch? You say wie. Wie is who. What. How do you say what in Dutch? Wat. It's very close. How do you say where? Waar. Waar is where. Waar. Okay, so who is wie. What is wat. When is... Why am I drawing a blank? Wanneer. I drew a blank on that. Okay, so who is wie. What is wat. Who, what, when. Wanneer. Wanneer is when. Who, what, when, where. Waar. Why. Waarom. And how. Who. Okay, so that's what's going to hang you up is how sounds like who. So, I mean, that's how they say how. They say who. But who is wie. So, it's not we, okay? So, you just have to learn these things. Are you sure? Are you sure? You say, weet u wel zeker? Weet u wel zeker? Means are you sure? Or then that's formal. So if you want to say informal, you say weet je wel zeker? Weet je wel zeker? Weet je wel zeker? You sure? Zeker is sure. It's like saying certain. Zeker. Certain. Okay, so, or you could say, weet je dat zeker? You know that for certain? Weet je dat zeker? Okay. You can say, it's fine. How do you say, it's fine? You say, it is in order. It is in order. It sounds like it is in order. Okay. Like the fucking soda machine is in order. It is in order. It's fine. You can say, it's okay. They say that. They say it's okay. They know what that means. You'll find more often that you'll hear so many English phrases in like metropolitan Dutch. They're different out in the country, in het platteland. They speak different, they're more traditional. But you get into the cities and you'll hear Dutch people talking, you'll hear a whole sentence that's English, or just a phrase that's English. And one word that they say a lot that is an English word is even, meaning even, like even. You'll hear even a lot more in Dutch. And then another word that you'll hear a lot in Dutch is natuurlijk. Natuurlijk. And that means naturally. They'll just say, ja, natuurlijk wel. Ja, natuurlijk wel. Means, yeah, for sure. Like, naturally. Of course. Natuurlijk means of course. So, yeah, certainly is zeker. Maybe is misschien. That's kind of a weird one. When you first learn how to say misschien. Misschien is maybe, or perhaps. Misschien. Misschien wel. Misschien niet. Maybe, maybe not. Of course, this one is very popular in Dutch. You hear it all the time. Natuurlijk, okay? I already said that. Natuurlijk is of course. Natuurlijk niet. Natuurlijk wel. And you hear it all the time. You don't hear Dutch being spoken for very long without hearing natuurlijk. It's kind of like when you're hearing Russian, it doesn't take long before you hear someone say cock. It's always funny, like for an American to hear that. They say cock like it's going out of style. How would you say, is that possible? Can it be? You say, kan dat. Kan dat. Like, can it happen? Can this happen to us? Kan dat. Sounds like Canada. Canada. That's what it sounds like. But yeah, it just means like, can that happen? Could it be? Can it be? Kan dat? Okay, be careful. That's an important one. You see someone's like drive like on a bike and they're getting ready to hit a tram. You might want to say wees voorzichtig. Okay, because that means be careful. Wees voorzichtig. Okay, so voorzichtig is a hard one to say. It's hard for Americans that you might see somebody getting ready to hit a tram and you get caught up in your words. You're just like, but it's wees voorzichtig. Be careful. Voorzichtig. It's careful. Wees is a command. It means be. You know, like be quiet. Wees still. Look at this. How would you say look at this? And this is another one you hear a lot too. Kijk eens. Kijk eens means like look at this. Kijk eens. Kijk eens. Look. You can just say kijk. And you got to be careful though the way you say it because it sounds like a slur. So you don't want to be guilty of, you know, saying that to the wrong person. Someone will kill you for that shit. All right, so listen to this. Like you got your earbuds in. You say luister eens. Luister eens. Listen to this. Luister eens. And so what you're getting here with both of these words, kijk eens and luister eens, it's kijk eens and luister eens. So that eens gets swallowed to is. Kijk eens, luister eens. Okay? It's kijk eens, but they don't. It gets swallowed. Okay? Kijk eens, luister eens. Okay, so eens, when not stressed or isolated, is swallowed. Okay, so kom tu mee? What does that mean? Kom tu mee? It sounds like you're saying come to me, but it's not what you're saying. You're saying like, are you coming? Are you coming with? You coming along? Like I'm going to the store. You coming? Kom tu mee? That's formal. So if you want to be informal, you say like, kom je mee? Kom je mee? Okay, so are you coming with? Mee literally means along or with. What's happening? How do you say what's happening? Wat is er? Wat is er? Or you say wat heb je? What do you have? Like what heb je? What have you? Wat is er? What is here? Wat is er? Wat is er? Wat heb je? Okay, so you can also say wat is er aan de hand? It means like what's going on, like what's at hand, like what's going on here, like what is the issue at hand? Wat is er aan de hand? What's going on here? Wat is er aan de hand? I think that Dutch has a certain charm to it, and that phrase really like that's the Dutch charm right there. Wat is er aan de hand? I like that phrase. Okay, so now we're on a different book. This is Dutch Essential Grammar by William Z. Schutter. William Z. Schutter. So Dutch Essential Grammar. We're gonna this is gonna be less of like common phrases. Those are called colloquialisms. All those things that I just taught you. It's all colloquialisms, okay? And so now we're going to go into just like more like kind of obscure words that just emphasize certain pronunciation rules. Okay, so hoofde is heads. Hoofde, heads. Opvouwen is to fold up. And so, okay, so what is it about these two words that, like, why even bring it up? Because the reason is the word hoofde, spelled Hoofden, sounds, the F sounds like a V. Hoofde, even though it's an F in the spelling. And so, and then what you've got on the next one, opvouwen, is kind of the opposite, because opvouwen is spelled Opvouwen, and so that V sounds more like an F. So in the first case, you have an F that sounds like a V, and in the second case, you have a V that sounds like an F. So you got hoofde or opvouwen. You see how it switches? Okay, and opvouwen means to fold up. And on both of those, you notice that the N, the final N at the end, is kind of dropped. And so, like, if you want to emphasize a verb in the infinitive form, you will pronounce the N. You could say hoofden, hoofden. But nobody really says that. They say hoofde. So that final N is dropped. It's kind of like British English in that way. How, like, in British, like, the final R gets dropped. They don't really pronounce that. And so, okay, here's a phrase. And the phrase is, I have many. What is interesting about ik heb veel is ik heb is a B, spelled B, but it's pronounced like a P. Ik heb veel. I have many. Ik heb veel. Here's another phrase. I had certainly run to the store. You get ik had zeker. Ik had zeker. But you notice that the second word, had, is spelled exactly the same. H-A-D. But it's pronounced hot. So had is pronounced hot in that case. Ik had zeker. Ik had zeker. Ik had zeker gerend. Ik had zeker gerend. So you could say it like that. So I'll move on from that. Man and men, man versus men, you'd say man or manne. In that case, manne. Manne. Hoeveel mannen? How many men? Or you could say één man, one man. Één man, twee mannen. Okay, so that double N on manne, and then the final EN, the N gets dropped. So you say één man, twee mannen. One man, two men. You could say one bed or two beds. You could say één bed. Again, the D turns into a T. Één bed. Drie bedden. Drie bedden. Or you say drie bedden. You don't say drie. You say drie. You say drie and roll your R. Or you can do it in the back of the throat and go drie. Drie bedden. Hoeveel bedden? Drie bedden. Three beds. Eén bed. Eén bed. Drie bedden. Okay, so you say vier bedden. And when you say four beds, vier bedden, there's your R that becomes like an American R. Vier bedden. Hoeveel bedden? Vier bedden. Okay. So pill or pills. One pill is één pil. Één pil. The P almost sounds like a B. Één pil. Okay. You can say 5 pills. You say 5 pillen. 5 pillen. Okay. And you say 1 pot. Or how many pots? You say een pot. Een pot. Or you could say 6 potten. 6 potten. You say 6 pots. 6 potten. Er zijn 6 potten in de kast. There are 6 pots in the cabinet. You say één bus. You say 2 bussen. 2 buses. 2 bussen. Een bus. Eén bus. Hoeveel bussen? 1 bus of 2 bussen? Okay. One bus or 2 buses? Okay, I had to let the cat out. So, arms. Okay, you say an arm. An arm. You can say 2 armen. 2 armen. 2 armen. You could say, okay, so church. You could say één kerk. You could say 2 kerken. 2 kerken. 10 kerken. 10 churches. One thing. Een ding. Een ding. You say two things. Twee dingen. Twee dingen. Eén ding. Twee dingen. Plates. Plates. Een bord. One plate. Een bord. Two plates. Twee borden. So, een bord. Twee borden. Coast. Or coasts. Like east, west coast. Een kust. Een kust. And you say, twee kusten. Two coasts. Twee kusten. How many coasts are there in the United States? Er zijn twee. Er zijn twee kusten. De Verenigde Staten. In de Verenigde Staten er zijn twee kusten. Okay, so in the United States there's two coasts. So, some more basic vocabulary. Animals. Dieren. Okay, I use the throaty R for that one. I don't say dieren. Two animals. Twee dieren. Twee dieren. You say, er zijn twee dieren buiten. Buiten er zijn twee dieren. You roll your R. Twee dieren. That's probably the best way to do it. I'd say if you're new, don't try the throaty R on that one. You can just roll your R and get away with it. You can say, er zijn twee dieren buiten in the town. Okay, so like there's two animals out in the garden. Er zijn twee dieren buiten in the town. So there's two animals out in the garden. Doors. Deuren. Deuren. Deuren is doors. Books. Boeken. Boeken. Okay, so how many doors? Drie deuren. Er zijn drie deuren. Hoeveel boeken? How many books? Hoeveel? Hoeveel? How many? Hoeveel boeken? Er zijn twee boeken. There's two books. Okay, trains. Treinen. Treinen. Okay, hoeveel treinen? Er zijn vier treinen. Vijf treinen. Vijf treinen. So yeah, trains is treinen. Treinen. Almost sounds like it starts with a D. Okay, so one word you're going to encounter a lot in the Netherlands is dikes, and it's probably not the dikes you're thinking of. It's the water structures, the dikes that hold the water in, because basically the Netherlands is like reclaimed land from the ocean, and so they've got dikes that keep the water out, and they call it dijken. Dijken. You say, er zijn drie dijken. Er zijn drie dijken in de stad. Okay. You say, er zijn drie dijken in de stad. Mistakes, fouten. Fouten. Ik heb een fout gemaakt. Okay, so that would be one. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Ik heb een fout gemaakt. Okay, so if you want to say I made two mistakes, you say ik heb twee fouten gemaakt. I made two mistakes on my work. Ik heb twee fouten gemaakt op mijn werk. Ik heb twee fouten gemaakt aan mijn werk. Tuinen is gardens. We already said buiten in the tuin. Outside in the garden. Buiten in the tuin. Outside in the garden. Tuinen is gardens. Er is een tuin aan de voorkant. Okay, so there's a garden in the front yard. Er is een tuin aan de voorkant. There is a garden in the front. The voortuin is the front yard. Backyard. How do you say backyard in Dutch? De achtertuin. You say the backyard, you say de achtertuin. De voortuin is the front yard. On the voorkant, er zijn twee tuinen. There's two gardens in the front. We're going to practice that dropped E-in at the end of a word. Lopen. Lopen is to walk. So, I remember that little old Dutch guy that was my tutor. He would say lopen. But I think he was only doing that to like let me know that there was an E-in at the end of the word. Most times I've heard Dutch people say to walk, they just say lopen. Lopen. Okay. Spoken is gesproken. Gesproken is spoken. If something's wood, if it's wooden, houten. Houten is wooden. Houten. Trees, bomen. Zijn 6 bomen in the town. There's 6 trees in the garden. Zijn 7 bomen. Zijn 6 bomen in the town. Zijn 6 bomen buiten. So again, guilders. We're back to guilders. Gilde. Gilde is guilders. We use euro now, euro. But we used to use guilders. Gilde. Gilde. So that's now obsolete. Gilde is obsolete. Hospital is ziekenhuis. Ziekenhuis. Hospital. Ziekenhuis. Ziekenhuis. So the en is in the middle of the word, but it's dropped. Ziekenhuis. Okay, so now I actually have this book right here, Dutch, A Comprehensive Grammar by Bruce Donaldson. I got this one here. So we're going to take these. We're going to take these examples from that book. So pronunciation is uitspraak. Uitspraak is pronunciation. Uitspraak. Okay, so in koude nachten en stormachtige avond. In koude nachten en stormachtige avond means a cold, wet, and stormy night. In koude nachten en stormachtige avond. A cold, wet, and stormy evening. It's not night. Night is nacht. Okay, so in koude nachten en stormachtige avond. A cold, wet, and stormy evening. In koude nachten en stormachtige avond. A cold, wet, and stormy evening. Als je het morgen doet. Als je het morgen doet. If you do it tomorrow. Or if you do it in the morning. So, if you do it tomorrow, you'll get something from me. You say, als je het morgen doet, krijg je iets van mij. Krijg je iets van me. Als je het morgen doet, krijg je iets van me. Als je het morgen doet, krijg je het iets van me. That means if you do it tomorrow, you'll get something from me. Als je het morgen doet, krijg je iets van me. Okay, so I suppose that could come in handy on a vacation to Amsterdam. Now you never skimp on the G. Whenever you have a G like that and you get that ch, you really need to pound it. You can't pussy that thing. You gotta slam it. Als je het morgen doet, krijg je iets van me. Okay, so omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos op hem. So because he was so late coming home, his wife was mad at him. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos op hem. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos van hem. Now that's where you would think it would be zijn vrouw was boos van hem, because in English we're used to saying his wife was angry at him. But it's more like, because he's so late coming home was his wife mad at him. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos van hem. Boos op hem. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos op hem. Okay. Because he was so late coming home, his wife was angry at him. Omdat hij zo laat thuiskomen was zijn vrouw boos op hem. Okay. So, omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis. Omdat ik me misselijk voel. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis. So, since I'm feeling ill, I'm staying home and going straight to bed. En ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Oké. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. See, these are pretty hard to say. Omdat ik me misselijk voel. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Okay, so since I'm feeling ill, I'm staying home and going straight to bed. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Omdat ik me misselijk voel, bleef ik thuis en ga ik onmiddellijk naar bed. Okay, so since I'm feeling ill, I'm staying home and going straight to bed. Ik geloof dat hij morgen komt. Okay, so that means I believe he's coming tomorrow. Ik geloof dat hij morgen komt. Ik geloof dat hij morgen komt. I believe he's coming tomorrow. Ik geloof dat hij morgen komt. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven. I'd given the pot to my mother, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. That one's fucked up. It means I'd given the pan or the pot to my mother, although then I didn't have one myself. Ik had de pan aan mijn moeder gegeven, hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Hoewel ik er toen zelf geen had. Okay, so that's a confusing construction. So literally it spells out, I had the pot to my mother given, however, I there then myself not one had. Kind of. So the pen you wrote the letter with is empty. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef is leeg. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef is leeg. That means the pen you wrote the letter with is empty. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef is leeg. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef is leeg. De vulpen waar je de brief mee schreef is leeg. It means the pen you wrote the letter with is empty. De universiteit. De universiteit. Okay, that means the university. Die later in het jaar, that later in the year, and it means the university, which would have liked to introduce a number of new courses later in the year, has decided that that is no longer possible. Okay, so this is a difficult passage right here. De universiteit die later in het jaar een aantal nieuwe cursussen had willen invoeren, heeft besloten dat dat niet meer mogelijk is. Again. De universiteit, die later in het jaar een aantal nieuwe cursussen had willen invoeren, heeft besloten dat dat niet meer mogelijk is. And what that means is the university, which would have liked to introduce a number of new courses later in the year, has decided that that is no longer possible. De universiteit, die later in het jaar een aantal nieuwe cursussen had willen invoeren, heeft besloten dat dat niet meer mogelijk is. Okay, so the university, which would have liked to introduce a number of new courses later in the year, has decided that that is no longer possible. De universiteit, die later in het jaar een aantal nieuwe cursussen had willen invoeren, heeft besloten dat dat niet meer mogelijk is. Okay, that's Dutch. Okay, so we're going to move on to a different thing. Ik ben flits in de namiddag gekregen. De kleine mensen bewoont de bos. The small people wonen, to live, de bos. De mensen bewoont het bos. Inhabited the forest. De kleine mensen bewoont het bos. Pete Smith is een lukrake, enge man. Lukrake. Dit verkeer is juist waanzin. Okay, I don't know if these are ones that I created. Frank loopt door in een statige houding. Frank walked through in a stately manner. De hitte is een klein ergernis van de zomer. The heat is a small ergernis. Daar is een vies schooier in het poort. There's a dirty schooier. I don't know about all these. Okay, here's some phrases from the Scherpschutter. This is some of my early notes. Over zijn geslacht. What does that mean? Over zijn geslacht. It means over his crotch. So it's talking about his belts that crossed right over his crotch. And so the phrase is over zijn geslacht. Okay, so they made no sound. Ze maakten geen geluid. They made no sound. Hadden bloed vergoten. Means they had shed blood. Hadden bloed vergoten. They had shed blood. Het was niet nodig. Means it was not necessary. So you'll hear that a lot in Dutch. Het was niet nodig. Het was niet nodig geluid te maken. It was not necessary to make noise. It's talking about the guns. The gunslinger's revolvers, they made no noise. So in the context of the story, it's saying that his holsters and his bandoliers or whatever were like the leather was creaking as he walked, but the guns themselves didn't make any sound. They didn't need to make a sound because they were killers. They had spilled blood, so they didn't need to make any sound. The killing spoke for itself. So it says het was niet nodig geluid te maken. It was not necessary to make noise. Hadden ze bloed vergoten. So it wasn't important that they make noise because they had spilled blood. Zijn kleren waren. His clothes were. Zijn kleren waren. Zijn kleren waren. So kleurloos als. So colorless as. Zijn kleren waren so kleurloos als. So his clothes were so colorless as. I think that the sentence ended with regen of stof, means rain or dust. Okay, so zijn kleren waren zo kleurloos als regen of stof. Zijn kleren waren zo kleurloos als regen of stof. His clothes were as colorless as rain or dust. Okay, so een leren veter. A leather veter. Was that a strap? Or a lace? Een leren veter. Loosjes door ringetjes geregen. So it's talking about how he's, you know how like cowboys have like a freaking corset? it's like a laced, like the top part of their shirt is like kind of open, but it's got like some eye holes like a shoe, and then it's sort of laced up. And it's saying in leren veter, so like a leather string or a leather strap or strip. Loosjes door ringetjes geregen. So the leather strap was loosely kind of threaded through the ringlets of his, like, I don't want to say corset because it sounds, you don't want to call a gunslinger shirt a corset or you might get shot. Met de hand geslagen. Met de hand geslagen means that like hand crafted. So it's basically saying that the ringlets in his shirt were handcrafted, or met de hand geslagen means like pounded by hand. Like it's almost like, say if you made a sword and you pounded it by hand. Met de hand geslagen, beaten with the hand. But it just means handcrafted. Hij droeg een denim broek. Hij droeg een denim broek. Okay, so that means he wore like denim pants. In Dutch, pants is singular. It's not like a pair of pants. There's only one. I mean, like, I know there's two fucking sleeves, but like you jump into the one, like the pants themselves, like underwear, a pair of underwear. Like there's only one. Like, yeah, there's two fucking holes in it, or three holes if you count the one you dive into. But okay, so hij droeg een denim broek. Okay, he wore denim pants. Hij beklom een duin. He climbed a dune. Hij beklom een duin. So like these are phrases that you would never use, but like, as far as being a completionist and learning everything there is to learn about a language, you want to know every word, right? I mean, eventually. So I would say this isn't really the best place to start, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. So hij beklom een duin. Donald, I used a different first name. Donald zag de resten van een kampvuurtje. Zag de resten van een kampvuurtje. What does that mean? So Donald, I don't know why I chose the name Donald. Roland is the name of the main character, Roland. Roland zag de resten van een kampvuurtje. He saw the remains of a campfire. Saw de resten, the remains, van een kampvuurtje. Hoewel geen zand was. However, there was no sand. Hoewel geen zand was. However, there was no sand. Zelfs de gure winden. So even the pervasive wind. Zelfs de gure winden, even the pervasive winds, juichen alleen maar in stof op. Juichen alleen maar in stof op. It means even the inclement wind chased up just like dust. Like, so what it's talking about, hoewel geen zand was. So in this desert, it wasn't sand. It was like hard pan. And so even like the heavy winds or the incisive winds would just kind of kick up like a dust. But it wasn't sand, it was hard pan. De fundamentele menselijkheid van hem bevestigde. Okay, eens te meer. What is eens te meer? I'd have to see it in context. De fundamentele menselijkheid van hem bevestigde. So, the fundamental humanity of him bevestigde. I want to say like secured or it endowed him with. It endowed him with the fundamental humanity. And what this is talking about was it's talking about the gunslingers following the man in black through the desert. And there was like some burnt fucking bacon like in his campfire, in the remains of his campfire. And just the fact that he ate gave it endowed him with it sort of reassured the gunslinger that the person he was following was fundamentally human and not like, you know, like a ghost or something. So just the fact that this thing ate, you know, the man in black was eating, so he was still human even though he was like a magic user, like a magic sorcerer. And so de fundamentele menselijkheid van hem bevestigde. So it's talking about how the signs of the campfire and the burnt bacon that was in it sort of bestowed upon this creature a fundamental humanity that reassured him. Dede hem genoegen means gave him pleasure. Okay, so eens te meer, de fundamentele menselijkheid van hem bevestigde, dede hem genoegen. So it's saying that this burnt bacon that bestowed upon the man in black a fundamental humanity, it gave the gunslinger pleasure. Dede hem genoegen. Like it gave him. Genoeg means enough. But in this case, it means like it did him pleasure. Like it was satisfying to him. Haar mond werd breder. Now, again, I changed the pronoun here to make it feminine. Haar mond werd breder means her mouth, she smiled. Werd breder means got wider, got broader. But it means smile. Haar mond werd breder. It's like if you grimace, your mouth werd breder. Right? Haar mond werd breder. In the context of this book, it's zijn mond werd breder. His mouth got broader, became wider. In de rest van means in the rest of, in the remainder of, in de rest van, zijn pookdalig, schilferig gezicht. What does that mean? His pockmarked, schilferig gezicht. Gezicht, his face. Hij hurkte neer. Hij hurkte neer means he hunkered down. Hij hurkte neer. He hunkered down. Hij had gras gebrand. Hij had gras gebrand means he had burned grass. Hij had gras gebrand. So, in this story, in the gunslinger, and this is stuff that the gunslinger is observing. He's looking at the campsite of the man in black, and he's kind of like, it's like he's scoping out his prey. He's hunting the man in black, and he's looking at his leavings, what he's left behind in his campground. And it's saying that he noticed that the guy had burned grass. And so in this desert, in this wilderness, where he's following this guy, there's this stuff called devil's grass, which grows all around. And it's kind of like marijuana in a way. It's more like fennel or like some kind of like tumbleweed that grows out of the ground. And if you burn it, it'll burn. Like you can use it to make a fire, but if you breathe it, it's like this hallucinogenic kind of poison. And so, like, it gives you these weird, crazy dreams, and you start seeing demons and spirits while you're falling asleep. So you might have this campfire burning, but you're breathing the smoke, and actually there's these kind of, you're becoming a little bit possessed by these kind of demons that live in the devil weed. And so that's what it's talking about. Hij hurkte neer. Hij had gras gebrand. So he hunkered down. He had burned grass. Hij had gras gebrand. Het was het enige hier dat wilde. It was the only thing here that would burn. So like, hij had gras gebrand. Het was het enige hier dat wilde. It was the only thing here that would. Okay. Het brandde met een vlak licht. It burned with like sort of a flat light. Like the flame was like a dull kind of flame. So it's just saying that this deviled grass was kind of like a cursed foliage that grew out of the ground. It's just like the world had moved on and the earth was not producing anything worth, anything good. It was like, it wasn't something that you could use as like a commodity at like a market. Like if you were to harvest this shit, it would just be shit basically. Het was het enige hier dat wilde. Het brandde met een vlak licht. It burned with a flat light. It burned with a dull glow. Het brandde traag. It burned slow. Het brandde traag. Grensbewoners hadden hem verteld dat. Okay, so grensbewoners, what is that? That grensbewoners means like border dwellers. Grensbewoners hadden hem verteld dat. So the border dwellers told him dat er zelfs in de vlammen duivels huisde. That even in the flames, devils lived in the flames. Dat er zelfs in de vlammen, in de flames, in de vlammen, dat er zelfs in de vlammen duivels huisde. Devils housed in the flames. Ze brandden het, they burned it. Maar in het licht kijken deden ze niet. Ze brandden het, maar in het licht kijken deden ze niet. Okay, so they burned it, but they didn't look into the light. So it's saying that the border dwellers told him that devils lived in the flames and that they would burn it, but they wouldn't look into the light. So grensbewoners hadden hem verteld dat er zelfs in de vlammen devils huisden. Ze brandden het, maar in het licht kijken deden ze niet. Okay. Zij zeiden dat degene die in de vlammen keek. So they said that the one who looked into the flames. Zij zeiden dat degene die in de vlammen keek. Ze hypnotiseerde, wenkte en uiteindelijk zouden meesleuren. So that means they hypnotized, wenkte. What is wenkte? Wenken. Wenken. What's the verb wenken? And so they hypnotized and eventually would draw you in. Meesleuren. To draw you in. So it's like, If you looked into the devil's grass while it was burning, it would hypnotize you, and it would draw you in, and then you would invite the demons into your spirit. En de volgende zou jou wel eens kunnen zien. En de volgende zou jou. So, in the following would you wel eens kunnen zien. So, okay. So the next person, the next victim, so to speak, that looked into the devil's grass would see you. So, if you stared into the flame, it would draw you in, part of your spirit into it. And then the next kind of sucker that came along and burned the grass and looked into the grass would see you in there, because it would capture a part of your spirit. Die stom genoeg was, who was dumb enough. Die stom genoeg was, who was dumb enough om in het vuur te kijken, who was dumb enough to look into the fire. So, en de volgende zou je wel eens kunnen zien, die stom genoeg was om in het vuur te kijken. Het verbrande gras lag kriskras door elkaar. Het verbrande gras lag kriskras door elkaar in het inmiddels bekende patroon. Het verbrande gras lag kriskras door elkaar in het inmiddels bekende patroon. There we use the throaty R. Het verbrande gras lag kriskras door elkaar in het inmiddels bekende patroon. Onder de hand van verpulverde tot grijze zinloosheid. Okay. Het verbrande gras, the burned grass, lag kriskras door elkaar. So the ashes of the grass sort of lay in a crisscross pattern. In het inmiddels bekende patroon. In het inmiddels, in the inmiddels, in the now known pattern. It's kind of hard to give an exact translation of that. Onder de hand van, under the hand of, verpulverde tot grijze zinloosheid. Under the hand of, verpulverde is pulverized. Pulverized to grijze, pulverized to gray nonsense, to gray senselessness. It's talking about how the grass was laid out in a certain way and burnt, and it was laid out in a crisscross pattern that was now identifiable to the gunslinger as kind of like the Man in Black's style of laying this stuff out to burn. And I guess he kind of like stomped on the fire and just pulverized it into like senselessness. So he took the pattern and disheveled it. Niets anders dan een stukje spek. Nothing more than a piece of bacon. Niets anders dan een stukje spek. Niets anders dan een stukje spek. Nothing more than a small piece of bacon. Er lag een stukje spek. Er lag een stukje spek. Tussen de resten. Between the rest. between the remainder, tussen de reste dat hij opat, that he ate up, dat hij opat. Het was steeds zo geweest. Het was steeds zo geweest. It was continually so. Het was steeds zo geweest. It was continuously so. Nu al 2 maanden. Now already 2 months. Het was steeds zo geweest. Nu al 2 maanden. Now already 2 months. Dat wagenvuur van een woestenij. That. So he had already been following the man in black through the wilderness for 2 months. Nu al 2 maanden. Now already 2 months. Dat wagenvuur van een woestenij. Okay, so that he's comparing the wilderness to a purgatory. Wagenvuur is purgatory. That purgatory of a desert. Eindeloze, gekmakend, eentonige. Okay, so endless, maddening, monotonous. Okay? Dat wagenvuur van een woestenij. Eindeloze, gekmakend, eentonige. Nu al 2 maanden dat wagenvuur van een woestenij. Eindeloze, gekmakend, eentonige. Okay, so now already 2 months. That purgatory of a desert, endless, maddening, monotonous. Hij had nog altijd, he had yet always, geen ander spoor gevonden dan de steriele ideografieën. Okay, so he had yet always, he had still always no other track or trace, not found any trace other than the sterile patterns of the burned grass. So he's basically saying that as he's tracking this guy like a hunter would track a prey, the only traces that he finds of this guy are these kind of sterile, burnt out fires, and basically saying that, you know, he's not shitting or anything. Like, I guess he eats, but he doesn't shit. Maybe he buries it like a cat. I don't know. Like a one-legged cat trying to bury turds on a frozen pond. So, geen ander spoor gevonden dan de steriele ideografieën. Hij had ervan 4 achtergelaten. So he had left 4 of these als dode slangenhouden. Oh, okay. Slangenhouden. So that's snake skins. Hij had daarvan. Okay, now it's talking about the gunslinger's water bags. So he had these kind of water bags slung on around his body, and he had left 3 of them or 4 of them already behind. I don't know. Maybe I added 4 instead of 2. Maybe there was 2 that he left. He had left 4 of them behind, like dead carcasses, like dead snake skins. Als dode slangenhouden. Geen fles of waterzak had hij gevonden. So, like, he's saying that he found no traces of the man in black as he was pursuing him, other than the burnt out fires. So, even though he was talking about, like, how he found, like, the crispy bacon in the fire, kind of made him think that the guy was a little bit human, yet the guy had left no water bags, had left no turds, so, like, it wasn't exactly like he was following a human. Like this guy there was something weird and magical and scary and unnerving about this guy whom he was following. Okay, so hij had nog altijd geen ander spoor gevonden dan de steriele ideografieën. Hij had er daarvan 4 achtergelaten. So, like, he's saying he had left 4 of these water bags behind, and this dude had left none. So, like, you know, he still needed water bags to survive. Als dode slangen hadden geen fles of waterzak had hij gevonden. So he had not found a bottle, he had not found a water bag, nothing. Misschien zijn de kampvuren en boodschappen uitgespeld. Letter voor letter, neem en poeder, het einde naakt. Ate by Joe. Okay, so what this is saying is, okay, misschien zijn, which is maybe, could be, misschien zijn, could be, de kampvuren en boodschap uitgespeld. So that means the campfires spelled a message. So maybe the campfires, it could be that the campfires were delivering him a message. Letter for letter. Okay, letter for letter. Name and powder, like take a powder. That's a phrase that Stephen King uses a lot. Take a powder. It means to like hit the road, Jack. Take a powder, you know. Name and powder. I doubt that Dutch people use that phrase. Het einde naakt. The end approaches. Het einde naakt. Like the end is near. Ate by Joe. Eat at Joe's. So like the campfires are giving him some sort of a, it could be that the campfires are giving him a message. The campfire itself is a mess. Like the dude's leaving him a message, or the campfire itself is giving him a message. And saying, hey dude, hit the road, Jack. Like you're gonna die if you keep following this guy. That's what it's saying. It's saying that like this is a warning. The campfire is a warning to him. Like if this dude, if he's chasing this dude through a desert with no life in it other than this dead grass that they're burning, he's eventually going to die because he's already left 4 water bags behind. This dude's not even leaving a bottle. So he's following this pseudo spirit into the wilderness. And he is still mortal. And so he's probably going to die chasing this guy. It's almost like narcissist looking into the water and seeing his own reflection until he dies. De kampvuur en boodschap uitgespeld. So the campfire spells out a message. Boodschap is message. Letter for letter, name and poeder. Het einde naakt. The end approaches. Ate by Joe. Maybe it's just telling him eat at Joe's. It's an advertisement. Hij deed er niet toe. Hij deed er niet toe. It didn't matter. Het deed er niet toe. So whatever the message was didn't matter. Als het alle waren. Als het alle waren. Even if all those messages were correct. And net zo koud als, just as cold as, all the others, al die anderen. Net zo koud als, just as cold as, al die anderen, all the others. En de resten waren, and the rest were, hij wist dat hij dichterbij kwam. He knew that he was getting closer. Hij wist dat hij dichterbij kwam. En de resten waren, and the rest were. Hij wist dat hij dichterbij kwam. He knew that he came closer. maar wist niet hoe hij dat wist. He knew that he was getting closer, but he didn't know how he was getting that information. He knew he was getting closer, but he didn't know how he knew. Hij wist dat hij dichterbij kwam, maar wist niet hoe hij dit wist. That deed er ook niet toe. That didn't matter either. Okay, so it's saying that like he didn't know what messages the campfire was giving him. It could have been this, it could have been that. It didn't matter. Even if all those messages were true. Something just so cold as all the others. I don't get that part. And the rest were. I know I'm leaving some info out here. I think I'm just kind of like stealing little phrases. En de resten waren. Hij wist dat hij dichterbij kwam, maar wist niet hoe hij dat wist. Dat deed er ook niet toe. That didn't matter either. Hij stond up. He stood up and veegde zijn handen af. He wiped his hands off. He stood up and wiped. Basically, it's saying that he stood up and wiped the dust off his hands, or the ashes from the campfire. Dat deed er ook niet toe. Hij stond op. He stood up and veegde zijn handen af and wiped his hands off. That's all. Veegde zijn handen af. Okay, so now we've got some stuff from The Shining. Waarschijnlijk kortsluiting. Probably short slouting. Short closing. Ik zal eens gaan kijken. Ik zal eens gaan kijken. I can quickly go look. Je gaat de kamer niet uit. Don't go out of the room. So I'm going to go look. Probably kortsluiting. Short-circuiting. Probably short-circuiting. I'm going to go look. Don't go out of the room. Doe niet zo dwaas. Don't be so dwaas. I don't know dwaas. Waarschijnlijk kortsluiting. So probably short-circuiting. Ik zal eens gaan kijken. I shall go look. Je gaat de kamer niet uit. You're not leaving this room. Je gaat de kamer niet uit. Doe niet zo dwaas. I don't know what dwaas means. Terwijl hij zijn kamerjas aantrok. While he put on his kamerjas, room jacket, chamber coat. Terwijl hij zijn kamerjas. What's chamber coat? Oh. Is that a pajama top? A kamerjas? Terwijl hij zijn kamerjas aantrok. Or maybe it's a robe. While he put his robe on. Het is mijn werk. It's my work. So this is from The Shining. So something happened, like a light went out, and he said, it's probably a short circuit. I'm going to go look. And his wife said, you're not leaving this room. And he's like, don't be so ridiculous, or don't be so jumpy. Dvas, I don't know what that means. And so while he put on his smock, terwijl hij zijn kamerjas aantrok. Het is mijn werk. It's my work. Een ogenblik later, a moment later, een ogenblik later, was zij ook uit bed. She was also out. A moment later, she was also out of bed. En trok Danny met zich mee. And brought Danny with her. Een ogenblik later was zij ook uit bed. En trok Danny met zich mee. So a moment later, she was also out of bed. And brought Danny with her. Dan gaan wij mee. Then we are going with. Dan gaan wij mee. Wat is er? Wat is er, papi? So the boy's saying, what's going on? What's going on, Dad? In plaats van de antwoorden keerde hij zich af met een strak en boos gezicht. So instead of an answer, he turned himself around with a strak and boos gezicht. Strak, like a drawn and evil face. In plaats van de antwoorden keerde hij zich af. In plaats van de antwoorden keerde hij zich af met een strak en boos gezicht. Hij trok de ceintuur om zijn kamerjas. Hij trok, so he brought the ceintuur around. Oh, so he drew the cord around his robe. Like what is it, the belt? What is that thing? The drawstring on the robe. The opende de deur. Opende de deur and stopped naar buiten. So he drew the drawstring around his robe, opened the door and stepped outside. Hij trok de ceintuur om zijn kamerjas, opende de deur en stapte naar buiten. De donkere gang in. Naar buiten, de donkere gang in. So he stepped outside into the dark hallway. Hij trok de ceintuur. Hij trok de ceintuur om zijn kamerjas, opende de deur en stapte naar buiten, de donkere gang in. So, he drew the strap around what do you call that, a robe? For the robe, the belt of the robe. So he drew the string around his robe, the rope, opened the door and stepped out into the dark hallway. Vent aarzelde een ogenblik. Wende, aarzelde a moment. Wende, I don't know what that means. En het was in feite Danny die het eerst in beweging kwam. That first came into movement, and it was in fact Danny who het eerst in beweging, movement, who moved first. Zij volgde hem vlug. Okay, so Vent aarzelde een ogenblik, a moment. And it was, in fact, Danny who first got up. Zij volgde hem vlug. So, his mom followed him quickly. She followed him quickly. Zij volgde hem vlug. Zij volgde hem vlug. So she followed him quickly. En samen gingen ze naar buiten. And together they went out. Zij volgde hem vlug. En samen gingen ze naar buiten. She followed him quickly. And together they went outside. Jack had het licht niet aangedaan. So Jack had not turned the light on. Ze tastte naar de schakelaar van de 4 plafondlichten in de gang. Ze tastte naar de schakelaar van de 4 plafondlichten in de gang, die naar de hoofdgang voerde. They reached for the switch of the 4 platform lights in the hallway that the hoofdgang, the causeway, to the causeway that led to the causeway. In the hallway that led to the causeway. Zij tastte naar de schakelaar van de 4 plafondlichten in de gang die naar de hoofdgang voerde. So that means they reached for the switch of the 4 platform lights. It's not a very good floor lights. Ze tastte naar de schakelaar van de 4 plafondlichten in de gang die naar de hoofdgang voerde. So they reached for the switch that turned on the 4 floor lights in the hall that led to the main causeway. Boven ging Jack al de hoek om. So upstairs, Jack had already turned the corner. Boven ging Jack al de hoek om. Boven ging Jack al de hoek om. Boven ging Jack al de hoek om. Al de hoek. Boven ging Jack al de hoek om. So upstairs, Jack had already turned the corner. Ditmaal vond Danny de schakelaar. This time, Danny found the switch. Ditmaal vond Danny de schakelaar. En de lampen flitsten aan. Okay, so this time Danny found the switch and the lamps flickered on. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. The hall which led to the stairs and the liftschacht, the elevator shaft, became visible. So ditmaal vond Danny de schakelaar en de lampen flitsten aan. So this time Danny found the switch and the lamps flickered on. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. So it's saying, the hall which led to the stairs and the elevator shaft became visible. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. De gang die naar de straat voerde en de liftschacht werden zichtbaar. Okay, so the hall which led to the stairs and the elevator shaft became visible, or came into view. Soplap, voor het laat. Nou dag. Deze week. Ik heb de auto deze week. Okay, so this is from the Vierde Man, the movie, the film, the Vierde Man. Soplap is like a drunkard. Voor het laat. Okay, so I'm just like writing down what I could understand of the dialogue. Nou, dag. Well, bye. Nou, dag. Ik heb de auto deze week. So it's like these 2 roommates, and they take turns per week. One guy gets the car, and the next week. Ik heb de auto deze week. The main character, he's a writer, and he has to go and deliver a speech. Like he's got this paid appearance that he's gonna do for some fans, like a VIP kind of thing, and he's gonna speak. And he wanted to take the car, and his gay roommate, who's like sitting there practicing the violin, calls him a lousy drunk, and he won't let him take the car. And so the dude has to take a train. He said, ik heb de auto deze week. Dat was de afspraak. So that was the arrangement. Dat was de afspraak. That was the agreement. Je hebt tot jonge benen. You have such young legs or bones. Ik heb een lezing in Vlissingen. So I have a reading in Vlissingen. Vlissingen is a town. So he's saying I have an engagement that I have to be at. Voor het laat. Voor het laat. Nou, dag. Kan ik? Kan ik? Geef me de stokjes van het auto even. Just give me the keys for the car. Dames en heren. Ladies and gentlemen. Dames en heren. Koffie. Ruitjes. Bier. Sherry. Niks anders. Nothing else. Niks anders. Sherry. Wijn. Rooiwijn. Ik zeg toch koffie, godverdomme. I just said coffee. God damn it. That's what he's saying. Ik zeg toch koffie, godverdomme. In Dutch, that's a very common curse word. Godverdomme. It's like, god damn. You know. Eén koffie. Eén koffie. Dank u. Ja, lekker makkelijke. Yes, nice and easy. Lekker makkelijke. Moet je niet huilen. Moet je niet huilen, schatje. So, okay, so this lady, this lady's like trying to keep her baby from crying. And I don't know who said, ja, lekker makkelijke. So, yes, nice and easy. Moet je niet huilen, schatje. Like, don't cry, baby. Moet je niet huilen, schatje. Moet je niet huilen, schatje. Jesus is overal. Jesus is everywhere. Jezus is overal. Mooi, eh? Nice, huh? It's like nice, beautiful, huh? Mooi, eh? Oh nee, de tomatensap. Oh nee, de tomatensap. Oh no, the tomato juice. Like it's leaking all over the bag. Vieze troep. Okay, so that means like dirty bitch. Vieze troep. Rustig maar, schatje. Quiet now, baby. Quiet now, sweetie. Rustig maar, schatje. Hallo means hello. Goedenavond. Mijn naam is Gerrit Geven. U kom mee halen. Like, you come to get me. U kom mee halen. I don't know exactly. Halen. U. Dat zou mij verbazen, meneer. Dat zou mij verbazen, meneer. Like, that surprises me, sir. Dat zou mij verbazen, meneer. Dat kan het toch niet zijn. Dat kan het toch niet zijn. That can not be. How can that be? Dat kan het toch niet zijn. Dat kan het toch niet zijn. Hey, ben ik wel. Hey, ben ik wel. Stop eens. Like, stop now. Stop eens. Er staat Gerrit. Like, there, that's Gerard. My name is also Gerard. What happens is he sees he stops these people who are carrying, they're like these pallbearers. They're carrying a casket, and it's got the guy's name on a ribbon, and the guy's name is the same as his, and he's like, stop. This is Gerard. Well, my name's also Gerard. Like, that's me in there. So, er staat Gerrit. Mijn naam is ook Gerrit. Hier, kijk maar. Het ben ik. It's me. Look. He's all, look, it's me. Hij is in Spanje overleden. He died in Spain. Hij is in Spanje overleden. Mooie dood. Heel mooi. So, he had a nice death. He says, mooie dood. Heel mooi. He's all, mooie dood. Bestaat het dan? Like, he's all, a good death? So that exists? Bestaat het dan? It exists, huh? Mooie dood. Heel mooi. Like a beautiful death. The guy died in Spain, a beautiful death. In bed overleden. He died in bed. Bovenop. Bovenop. Above. Up above. In Spaanse dame. A Spanish woman. He died in bed on top of a Spanish woman. Jonge vent. Young man. Ongeveer uw leeftijd of zo. Right around your age or so, meneer Geven. Mr. Reeves. So, let me read that again. Mooie dood. Heel mooi. Mooie dood. Bestaat het dan? Mooie dood. In bed overleden. Bovenop een Spaanse dame. Jonge vent, ongeveer uw leeftijd of zo, meneer Geven. Jonge vent, ongeveer uw leeftijd of zo, meneer Geven. Bovenop een Spaanse dame. jonger bent. Ongeveer uw leeftijd of zo, meneer geven. Yeah, so right around your age or so, he died on top of a Spanish woman. Died in bed. Okay, now we're back to the Scherpschutter. The Scherpschutter. Okay, so I've changed the names on this. David praatte langzaam tegen Chris. So David spoke slowly to Chris. David praatte langzaam tegen Chris. Met de open neergaande stembuigingen van een droom. So that means David spoke slowly to Chris with the up and down going inflection of a dream. Or cadence. Whatever. Inflection, cadence, same thing. Stembuigingen. We waren met z'n drieën. We waren met z'n drieën. We waren met z'n drieën. It was the three of us. We were a threesome. Wij mochten daar niet zijn. Wij mochten daar niet zijn, omdat geen van ons, because none of us already was through childhood. I think this is the part where is this the part where the three young gunslingers were training with Court? We mochten daar niet zijn. We must not be there because none of us has already gone all the way through childhood. Als we betrapt waren, zou Court ons met de zweep hebben gegeven. Would Court us with the zweep hebben gegeven. Als we betrapt waren, if we were caught, Court would fuck us up. Maar we werden niet betrapt, but we're not caught. We're not going to get caught. Ik denk niet dat ook maar iemand van degene. I don't know what to make of that sentence. Ik denk niet dat ook maar iemand. Ik denk niet dat ook maar iemand van degenen die ons voorgingen ooit wel werd betrapt. I don't know what that means. Jongens moeten de broek van hun vader. Jongens moeten de broek van hun vader in afzondering aantrekken. Afzondering. So boys must put on the pants of their father in solitude. So it's kind of saying that, like, in order to graduate to manhood, you have to do it alone. Because this whole part of the book is about these three teenage boys, and they're in their rite of passage, and it's saying that they don't know if they're ready, because if they end up being caught not ready, then they're gonna get fucked up by their teacher. Like their teacher, because eventually they have to kind of stand up and fight their teacher. And these guys are saying, like, we're not ready yet. We're not through our childhood all the way. Like, we're not ready to graduate yet. And so if we try to challenge our teacher, he's gonna fuck us up. And the other kid's saying, like, each burgeoning man has to sort of put on his father's pants, like, so to speak, on his own, like, in his own time. He has to take on the responsibilities of his father in his own time. Ik denk niet dat ook maar iemand van degenen die ons voorgingen ooit wel werd betrapt. Jongens moeten de broek van hun vader. Jongens moeten de broek van hun vader in afzondering aantrekken. See how when I actually speak it more fluently, I use the R in the back of my throat instead of rolling it on my tongue? Om ermee voor de spiegel de paraderen. Paraderen? I don't know what that means. Ermee voor de spiegel. So, about therewith, in front of the mirror, to paradere, to parade in front of the mirror. Ermee, therewith, in front of the spiegel, the mirror, to parade, en hem dan weer stiekem terughangen. So, and him then ver, again, in secret, in private. Okay. Boys must afzondering. So, when boys are alone, they have to like put their father's clothes on and parade themselves in front of the mirror and then secretly hang them back up. Zoiets was het. Zoiets was het. Zoiets was het. De vader doet niet alsof hij niet merkt dat. The father does not, as if he not noticed that they're hanging differently. Doet net, not niet. The father doet net alsof. The father doet net. The father does just as if he doesn't. The father acts like he doesn't notice that his pants are hanging differently. Of dat ze nog restjes van een schoensmeersnor. Shoe polish mustache. Or that they yet of dat ze, or that they still have the remainder of. It's just talking about these kids acting like their dad, and like in private and in secret they dress up like their dad and try and act like a man, and he has to kind of come home and pretend he doesn't notice that they've been wearing his clothes and that they've got the remnants of a shoe polish mustache on their face. So, of dat ze nog restjes van een schoensmeersnor. That's a hard one to say. Of dat ze nog restjes van een schoensmeersnor onder de neus hebben. Snap je? Like, get it? Snap je? De jongens say niets. The jongens say niets. I think this is what Court is telling them. He's like, you kids approaching me like you know better, like you're ready, you think you're ready to test. Like, you kids are like, you know, these dorks acting like you're trying to put on your dad's pants, and he's like pretending like he doesn't see it. De vader doet net alsof hij niet merkt dat ze anders opgehangen zijn. De vader doet net alsof hij niet merkt dat ze anders opgehangen zijn. Of dat ze nog restjes van hun schoensmeersnor onder de neus hebben. Snap je? De vader doet net alsof hij niet merkt dat ze anders opgehangen zijn. Of dat ze nog restjes van hun schoensmeersnor onder de neus hebben. Schoensmeersnor. De vader doet net alsof hij niet merkt dat ze anders opgehangen zijn. Of dat ze nog restjes van een schoensmeersnor onder de neus hebben. Snap je? De vader doet net alsof hij niet merkt dat ze anders opgehangen zijn. Of dat ze nog restjes van een schoensmeersnor onder de neus hebben. Snap je? De jongens say niets. The jongens say niets. The boys said nothing. Hij had niets meer gezegd, sinds zij afstand had gedaan. Hij had niets meer gezegd, sinds zij afstand hadden gedaan van het daglicht. Hij had niets meer gezegd, sinds zij afstand hadden gedaan van het daglicht. James had druk, kortachtig gepraat. I've changed the names on this. I think I'm doing it just to try to like Americanize it. James had druk, kortachtig gepraat om zijn zwijgen op te vangen. Zwijgen op te vangen. James had druk, kortachtig gepraat om zijn zwijgen op te vangen. Toen ze de lichtloosheid onder de bergen ingingen. Jason had het wegsterven van de dag afgelezen uit de weerspiegeling op Jake's wang. Weerspiegeling. Reflection on Jake's cheek. Had het wegsterven van de dag, the dying away of the day, afgelezen. Had read it out. Jason had the dying of the day read off the reflection on Jake's cheek. James had druk, kortachtig gepraat. Short, like staccato, kortachtig. James had quick, staccato speech around his zwijgen op te vangen. To catch. Vangen is to catch. Zwijgen. What's zwijgen? Toen zij de lichtloosheid onder de bergen ingingen. When they entered the lightlessness under the mountain. I think that's what bergen means. Covering. Bergen. Covering. Under the roof. Had hij niet naar het licht omgekeken. He had not looked at the light, but had looked at the boy. Toen ze de lichtloosheid onder de bergen ingingen, had hij niet naar het licht omgekeken. Toen ze de lichtloosheid onder de bergen ingingen, had hij niet naar het licht omgekeken, maar de jongen wel. Jason had het wegsterven van de dag afgelezen uit de weerspiegeling op Jake's wang. James had druk, kortachtig gepraat om zijn zwijgen op te vangen. Toen ze de lichtloosheid onder de bergen ingingen, had hij niet naar het licht omgekeken, maar de jongen wel. Jason had het wegsterven van de dag afgelezen uit de weerspiegeling op Jake's wang. Eerst zachte roze, toen opak. Okay, so first a soft rose, then opaque. Eerst zacht roze, toen opaque. Daarna matte silver, thereafter a flat silver. Toen de laatste schemertint, then the last shadow tint van de avond, ten slotte niet. So then the last shadow tint of the evening, finally nothing. Eerst zacht roze, toen opak. Daarna mat zilver. Toen de laatste schemertint van de avond. Ten slotte niets. De scherpschutter had licht gemaakt en ze waren verder gegaan. Nu hadden ze hun kamp opgeslagen. Er drong geen echo van de man in het zwart. Er drong geen echo. there rang not an echo of the man in black. Er drong geen echo van de man in het zwart tot hen door. Er drong geen echo van de man in het zwart tot hen door. Misschien had ook hij stilgehouden om te rusten. Maybe he had stood still to rest, or maybe he had swaggered forth, or maybe he had staggered forth without bordverlichting. Misschien had ook hij stilgehouden om te rusten. Misschien had ook hij stilgehouden om te rusten, of misschien zweefde hij voort, zonder bordverlichting, door nachtzwarte kamers. Door nachtzwarte kamers. Het was 1 keer per jaar in de grote zaal. It was 1 time per year in the great hall. Het was 1 keer per jaar in de grote zaal. Het was 1 keer per jaar. Het was 1 keer per jaar in de grote zaal. Ging de scherpschutter voort. Wij noemden het de zaal der grootvaders. Het was 1 keer per jaar. Het was 1 keer per jaar. Het was 1 keer per jaar in de grote zaal, ging de scherpschutter voort. Wij noemden het de zaal der grootvaders. Maar het was alleen maar de grote zaal. De geluid van druppelend water klonk in hun oren. Het geluid van druppelend water klonk in hun oren. The sound of dripping water rang in their ears. Komme wat komen moet. Komme wat komen moet. Come what may. Komme wat komen moet. Komme wat komen moet. Hij keek op. Ongeveer 5 meter diep. Makkelijk genoeg voor. Om een stuk rots op hem te laten vallen. Om een stuk rots op hem te laten vallen. Zijn hoofd te kraken. Zijn hoofd te kraken. En alles te stelen wat hij bij zich had. En alles te stelen wat hij bij zich had. En alles te stelen wat hij bij zich had. Lepreleder. Is a leper. Lepreleder. Zou het niet doen. Zou het niet doen. Brown was geen van beide. Brown was geen van beide. Geen van beide is neither. Brown was geen van beide. Toch mocht hij Brown. Toch mocht hij Brown. Hij zette de gedachte dus van zich af. En voelde de rest van zijn zaken. En voelde de rest van zijn zaken. Die geleidelijk afliep naar de woestijn. Die geleidelijk afliep naar de woestijn. De geleidelijk afliep naar de woestijn. Hij pakte zijn vuurslag. Hij pakte zijn vuurslag. Bruin haalde een zwavellucifer tevoorschijn, omstreek hem met een vuile nagel af. En streek hem met een vuile nagel af. Het uiteinde van zijn sigaret. Het uiteinde van zijn sigaret. Hij stak het in de vlam en trok. Hij stak het in de vlam en trok. Bedankt. Je zult de waterzaken willen voelen. Terwijl hij zich afwendde. Ik zal aan het eten beginnen. Ik zal aan het eten beginnen. Stapte voorzichtig over de stapte voorzichtig over de terrein maïs en liep om naar de achterkant. De bron was op de bodem van een put. Op de bodem van een met de hand uitgegraven put. Okay, so the spring was at the bottom of a hand-dug well. De bron was op de bodem van een met de hand uitgegraven put. De bron was op de bodem van een met de hand uitgegraven put. Afgewerkt met stenen. Worked with stone. Afgewerkt met de stenen. Om te voorkomen dat de puderachtige grond inviel. The powdery ground fell. Om te voorkomen dat. Worked with stone on the assumption that the powdery ground would fall in. Met de hand uitgegraven, afgewerkt met stenen, om te voorkomen dat de puderachtige grond inviel. Op de bodem van een met de hand uitgegraven put, afgewerkt met stenen, om te voorkomen dat de puderachtige grond inviel. Toen hij de ladder afdaalde, overwoog de scherpschutter dat de stenen met gemak 2 jaar werk moesten vertegenwoordigen. Takkelen, sjouwen, plaatsen. Het water was helder, maar stroomde langzaam. Het vullen van de waterzakken was een langdurig karwei. Toen hij de tweede afvulde, streek Zoltan op de rand van de put neer. Val dood, jij en het paar waarop je bent gekomen. Toen hij de deur binnen en de straat afging. Het onderkomen zelf bevond zich onder de grond, om zoveel mogelijk koelte van de nacht te verzamelen en vast te houden. Duwde Brown met een harde houten spatel maïskolven in de gloeiende als van een vuurtje. Duwde Brown met een hardhouten spatel maïskolven in de gloeiende als van een vuurtje. 2 gehavende borden waren aan weerszijden van een vale deken neergezet. In een pot was net het water beginnen te borrelen. Ik zal ook voor het water betalen. Brown keek niet op. Een geschenk van God worden door Papa Doc gebracht. Bromde en laag. Alright, so I'm pretty much worn out from doing all that. I don't think I can do any more. I've got plenty more notes that I could go through, but I think it would be unbearable to even listen back on all this stuff, much less try to keep going. So I think that's plenty of stuff to reflect on. I can go back and listen to that and try and perfect my models. And for anybody who would be interested in listening, or anybody who's like another American person trying to learn Dutch, this is pretty useful stuff. I mean, like, I would have loved to have something like this when I was, getting started. But there's plenty of better stuff out there. But, I mean, it's good to know that another person like you can be on the same journey, and you can gauge your success along with somebody else. I'm sure that any Dutch person would probably listen to me doing all this stuff and cringe at the idea that I would even dare to try and approach Dutch and butcher the language the way that I probably have. And as long as I've been doing this, I should be a lot further. But this exercise actually did teach me something. Like, I think that I could actually do something with this and go further with the language than I had. And maybe if I start a new language, I can go leaps and bounds beyond what I did before, because I wasted a lot of time in the early days the way that I was trying to learn. And so I've picked up some tricks along the way, and I am going to start some new languages soon. Like I said, with French, I want to get started with French. That video I made with the French pronunciation was probably really bad, but it's just a start. You grab a thread and you just start pulling that thread and see where it takes you, and that's all you can really do. And it's good to have some guidance. It's good to have some textbooks. It's good to have workbooks. I've got plenty of language books. I've got tons of them. And as far as Dutch, I've got more than I'll ever need. More than anybody should ever need. I mean, I've got enough to get to the point to where I can become like a native speaker, like if I was to really put my mind to it. But I'm not there yet, and I'm still working. But I do feel motivated to move forward with Dutch. I think that I've got the most promise with Dutch, even though I probably speak Spanish better. I actually know more Dutch words than I do Spanish, and I have like a broader probably comprehension of it. Like, I can understand spoken Dutch better than I can understand spoken Spanish. But when it comes to me speaking it, for some reason I can express myself better in Spanish. But that's probably not going to be for long. My Russian's really coming up too. And so the next language video that I'll make will probably be Italian. And it's been a while since I've worked on Italian. So I'll do some of that next. And then eventually I'm going to get into some more languages. Like I said, I'm going to learn French. I'm preparing to start learning Portuguese, and I don't know why, but I'm going to start, cracking the seal on Norwegian here pretty soon. So it's probably a long shot. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn how to speak Urdu or Hindi or something. I don't know, one of those languages. Chinese. I don't know. Well, I'll learn Mandarin maybe. Who knows? I mean, it seems like who knows if we're going to get taken over by the Chinese, we might as well get started at some point. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I wouldn't move to I'd just go up north, go to Russia. I'd rather hang out in Russia than in China. But not like I really want to go there either. I heard it's pretty rough. If I was going to move to another country, I'd probably go to the Netherlands or Norway. And so maybe for that reason I'll start learning some Norwegian. I think all the Spanish speaking countries are pretty shitty for the most part. They're probably really beautiful, but just really corrupt governments and run by gangs, and I don't want to have anything to do with that shit. So if I was going to move to another country, I might move to a place like Norway. Somewhere where the women are beautiful and the weather's cold and nobody really wants to go. That's the one thing that sucks about America, is everybody wants to come here. Nobody really wants to go to Norway. Apparently they have a lot of Muslim immigrants there, but that's fine. I can deal with that. Who knows? If I get crypto rich, I'll go check it out. But yeah, my next video will probably be Italian. I want to start learning some Norwegian, some French, and some Portuguese. And eventually I'll do a Spanish video. And then I'll cycle back to Russian again. Eventually I'll start some German too, so who knows? It's that shiny object syndrome. I just can't stop picking up new languages. I pick them up like bad habits. So anyway, I guess that's it for now. there's not really much else to do. There's not really much else to say. So I guess I'll see you later.